Hi everyone, welcome to week 4 of AP Psych. So for this week's lesson, you have 2 assignments you need to do for this week. So the one is an FRQ and the other one is your unit exam. So I do give you a spot where you can track your grade. Right now the learning targets obviously probably are not that accurate because of the fact that some targets we don't even have grades in yet. And some targets only have like 1, maybe 2 assignments in them. I will be updating those grades this weekend or on Monday of next week. I'll put an announcement up once I update them since for full-time students, this is a progress report period. But keep track of your grades throughout the semester using the Track My Grades. So underneath week 4 in the lesson plans, I have a helpful document for helping create FRQs. Otherwise, in the practice of the FRQ, so your adaptive release, you first need to answer 2 questions for adaptive release. So how many paragraphs the FRQ will be, and what was one thing you learned about the FRQ from the handouts. So it just forces you to look at those handouts first. So for FRQ help, I give an example and I explain what you need to do for a FRQ. So for a FRQ, think of ta-da. So find the term, define the term, and apply that to the scenario that you're given. So I give you some helpful hints for how to write an FRQ on these documents, and then I give you the example from week 4. So the research question that they first started off with was looking for a link between obesity and video gaming. Then the hypothesis that they came up with is that childhood obesity is linked to video gaming. So for part A of the FRQ, they want you to explain how Professor Hahn could use each of the following research methods to study this topic. So for paragraph 1, you'll indent it and you'll explain first what a case study is. So always start with defining. So you found the term was case study. Now you need to define it and then you need to apply it to Professor Hahn's scenario. So explain how Professor Hahn could do a case study in this experiment. Paragraph 2, so I should be able to clearly identify the second paragraph. A survey. So define what a survey is, then explain how a survey could be applied to this experiment with childhood obesity and video gaming. Then, third paragraph, naturalistic observation. Define naturalistic observation and explain how it could be applied to the scenario with childhood obesity and video gaming. So those are your first 3 paragraphs of part A. So make sure you're defining them because you can still get credit for at least defining them correct. Rather, if you don't apply it correctly, then the reader doesn't know if you understand the concept or not, and at least you could get some partial credit if you can at least define it right. Part B, paragraph 4, operational definition. So first define what that means, and then explain what the operational definitions would be in this experiment. So you would need to be able to define what is obesity, what is childhood obesity, what's the weight, what are you using to measure that variable. Then you would need to know what you're using to measure video gaming. So is video gaming your independent variable, because you can control that, whether a child plays video games or not, or is it a certain amount of time of video games you're studying if it's linked to video gaming. So you need to define your variables. And then once you define what things you're looking at in particular, so how you're collecting your data and organizing your data, so you explain that in paragraph 4. Paragraph B, you're telling me what the definition is of an independent variable and a dependent variable, and then you're identifying what the independent variable is in the experiment and what the dependent variable is in the experiment. So you're still using Professor Hahn's experiment. Then paragraph 6, define what random assignment is and explain how it would be used in this scenario. Part C, paragraph 7, explain what ethical guidelines are. So first start with explaining what ethical guidelines are and how Professor Hahn would follow these in the experiment. In paragraph 8, explain how he'd use statistics. So explain what statistics are, what data is, what mean, median, mode, standard deviation, scattered plots, negative, positive correlation. Explain those things and explain how you would use them in this free response or in this experiment. So I do provide for you more links to student examples. I give you examples of how the readers for AP have scored this prior. So definitely take advantage of those. And then for your unit exam, you're going to want to watch the e-session from this week. So watch week 4 e-session because I do give some helpful hints on your unit exam, but the unit exam has some multiple choice and then has short answers. I can tell you one of the short answers makes you show that you can understand and find the mean, median, mode, and range of data, and that it asks you the question about which one is the most affected by an outlier, so that would be mean. Make sure you're able to do those things. There are questions that relate to being able to identify whether or not the data is negatively correlated or positively correlated, so make sure you know how to do that. Also, one of the scenarios talks about how psychology is common sense. You need to be able to refute that by using the beginning of chapter 1. So what are some specifics from the beginning of chapter 1 that explain why psychology isn't just common sense? You need to be able to identify independent and dependent variables and be able to explain what a control group and an experimental group is for your exam. So for your Unit 2 exam, I am grading you based off of how much information and how well you understood the content of Chapter 1. So make sure you're using Chapter 1 to the fullest in your responses. Hopefully you found this helpful, and good luck with your exam and your FRQ.